Okay, so what you're gonna wanna do is roll your fondant out to be about 1/8 of an inch thick. It should be a little bit thicker than a piece of paper, but not so thin that it's see-through, okay? And then what I did is I went 6 inches long by 5 inches wide, but I kind of curved the edges. Those don't have to be perfect, but you do wanna kind of get the shape of the mask, so if you'll start off with the curve, it'll make it a lot better once we're ready to start forming it. Once you have that part, we're just gonna flip it over and we're gonna add some cornstarch. And the reason that we're adding this is just so that we can make those pleats without the fondant sticking too much to itself. That way we can kind of manipulate and form the mask into the shape that we want it to be. And then we're just gonna flip it back over. Okay, and then to start, what we're gonna do is come down maybe about 1 inch. Let the fondant roll over your fingers like this and kind of pinch the sides. And as you're doing that, that is creating the first pleat that looks like this. Once you've got that pleat, you're gonna push it up like this. And then go ahead and continue to do that so that you're creating the pleats for the mask. Okay, so again, just let it roll over your finger, create the pleat, and then push up. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to shape this a little bit more once we've got all of our pleats and everything done. And then just keep doing this part until you've got, you know, enough of these little pleats to give you what you need. Okay, and then we're gonna do another one. Obviously, depending on the size cake that you're gonna do, you may end up doing different lengths and widths of the mask. But again, I did a 6 inch, so this was a good size for me. And then along with the wording that I put on the cake, this ended up being the better way to do it for me. Okay, when you get to this end down here, this is the bottom of our mask. We're just gonna tuck this part under so that it kind of creates like the chin, the part of the chin that the mask goes over. And I'm just rolling it under and then pushing it down so that it looks a little bit more like this, okay? Then with our sides, we're gonna pinch those together, and this is what's actually creating this part of our mask. Okay, so it should look a little bit more like this. Now, when you pinch these, make sure that you push them down as well. So it's kind of making sure that those pleats are gonna stay in place with you doing it this way, okay? And then I just use the pizza cutter and I cut the edges off so that it kind of gives us more of a straight edge, like that. And then for the top part of the mask, I go halfway in the middle, I put my finger under there, and I create kind of like a triangle. And I do this to kind of represent the nose piece. So if you look at it from the side, you'll see this part here, okay? Now, once you put this onto the cake, these parts are gonna touch the icing. This part will not, so you'll be able to manipulate that a little bit more to give you, you know, the look that you're going for, okay? So now that we've got the basis of the mask done, we're gonna go ahead and do straps. So for the straps, you just roll out the fondant, same about 1/8 of an inch thickness, and then cut them into your strips. For this one, I did about 1/3 of an inch width, and then I just cut 4 strips so that we can be able to do the trim that goes around the mask. And then I just used a little bit of water. I went around the edge of the mask so that we could apply the stripping. I just went around the whole thing, just lightly, it doesn't take a lot. Again, we wanna kind of make sure that our nose piece stays where it needs to. And then it's easier to start in one of the corners of the mask because we are going to have the little ear pieces that are gonna also be applied, so it just looks a little bit better if you start at the corner. It'll blend, the seams will blend a little bit more. The other thing is you're not applying this entire strip to the mask. You're only doing like the edge of it, okay? You still want a pretty good amount off of the mask piece so that it can apply to the cake. And then that way you'll be able to manipulate and curve it and kind of poof it out a little bit too, okay? So you're just gonna go around your edges, add your trim. The other thing I did do on the trim is I did use the stitching tool to create, just to kind of help give that a little bit more realistic seam. So I did do that on both edges prior to doing that. I don't think that's going to be long enough to get me all the way around to the other side, so that's the reason why I'm cutting off there. And then I'm just going to start on this side to do the next strip. Okay, and again, We're just gonna start here. Now, when you get to the part that's gonna be the nose, this part, you just wanna make sure that you follow around, but don't push that down because you do want that to still stick up so that it can be more of a defined nose piece on the mask. Okay, and so once you've got all that done, this part is good to go that you can go ahead and apply to the cake, okay? I would probably let it dry just a little bit just so that that water can do it. So I'd probably maybe say like 15, 20 minutes. And then once that part is dry, then this mask piece is good enough that you can go ahead and put it onto the cake, okay? So you'll just roll it onto your cake like that. Make sure these parts around the edge where your banding is what's gonna attach to the cake. Pull this part out with the nose so that you can kind of keep the shape. Okay, and so once that is on the cake, then you'll take 2 more strips of that same banding width that we did, and you'll put one in the corner here, and just use water, attach it with water, and then let it kind of create like a circular shape, and then apply the other part here, okay? And then that way, but I did this part actually on the cake because it was easier to do rather than trying to deal with it while it's all still drying. And so I just did that and then did the same thing on the other side, and then that should give you the look that you need. Again, you can manipulate these any length and shape that you want once you actually have it onto the cake, okay? But that's how I did the mask, okay?